I want to talk about the importance of the Black press. Why is it so necessary in today's day and age that Black stories and voices have their own platforms in order to give a voice to what it is that we experience?
It's so important, for not dissimilar reasons than it was important 200 years ago. We still are subjected to any number of systemic issues in our country. And, outside of the mainstream and what the mainstream press can provide, we need an outlet. We need something that's going to elevate our voices and our stories, not just to tell them, but to tell the important news that's most important for us, to us as an audience.
Now, Lauren, there is a lot of conversation. A lot of people may not necessarily know or understand this. There's the notion that the field of journalism is taking a lot of hits because newspapers and magazines and print media is essentially a dying field. What do you make of that in terms of, does it make it easier for platforms that are talking about Black issues, the Black experience, Black stories? Does it make it easier to get things out because of the web, or does that make it harder because journalists are now having less and less opportunities in mainstream media?
Well, I would say that nothing is easy in the world of journalism right now. I wouldn't use that word. It is hard to get good quality information to people. And whether that's the mainstream media trying to do it as the business model is failing, whether that is small Black publications trying to do it. But that is one of the reasons why Black publications are more and more important. We need to really flood the zone with high quality information, news that's truthful and trustful and from trusted sources, as our sort of information pipelines have broken down.
There is this very interesting balance. Organizations like NABJ, the National Association of Black Journalists, have for years been advocating for diversity in newsrooms and more diversity in newsrooms. I can recall, if you're familiar, there's this recent story that ran in the New York Times about Travis Kelce inventing a haircut that I was wearing in 6th grade, the fade. Right. And a lot of that
the Travis Kelce.
Right, the Travis Kelce, right? Like the fade has been in the hood for years. I mean, literally decades. A lot of people point to that and they say this is evidence of a lack of cultural competency in newsrooms. Can you talk about the balance between having our own platforms where we're able to tell our own stories and then also needing to push for diversity in mainstream newsrooms as well?
Right. I don't think that we as Black people in America or Black communities should settle for, just one thing, just one thing. We are part of America. These newspapers say they're covering all of America. So their staffs should represent the country in order to competently cover the country. That should just be the baseline of their responsibility. But in addition to that, the Black press has shown for 200 years that there is an extra layer of need for Black communities across the country to get a specific type of information and news from Black sources.
Roland, I see you're back with us. I want to turn to you now. There is some sort of conversation where people will say, look, news is news, facts are facts. Why is it that there needs to be a separate entity for the Black press? How do you respond to that?
Easy. Freedom Journal was the nation's first Black newspaper, launched on March 16, 1827. And this is what they said in the 3rd paragraph on the 1st edition. We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. The reality is the Black press of America has served as the driver of activism, of speaking to our issues. Frederick Douglass, Ida B. Wells Barnett, Pittsburgh Courier, Chicago Defender, Atlanta Daily World, Ebony, Jet, Essence Magazine, Black Enterprise, Present Day, where you go BET, TV One, Radio One, Tom Joyner owning his own show, Black Radio. And so that has been the organs where we have talked about it. The Pittsburgh Courier launched a double victory campaign, victory home, victory abroad. They said, let's defeat fascism, but also racism at home. People don't realize that the Department of Defense targeted black newspapers because they dared to write about racism in the military during World War II. And so that's always been our goal. Part of the problem, though, is that we're dealing with economic apartheid. And so you've had ad agencies and companies refusing to advertise with black-owned media. That's one of the reasons we've not been able to grow. 24 years ago, BET was sold for $2.8 billion. Black-owned media was getting 1% in the year 2000. It's 2024. You know what we're getting? 1%. So we're speaking to an audience that wants to hear the perspective in a much different way. And the last point, we don't have to ask permission to cover black people in black-owned media. We do have to do it in mainstream. And I spent 6 years at CNN, and I can tell you what it was like having to explain to people why this story matters. I don't have to do that when I'm black-owned.
Roland, you've talked a lot about the notion of spending ad dollars, whether that's from political campaigns, political parties, or from corporate entities in terms of black media. How do consumers of black media apply the appropriate amount of pressure for different industries and entities to spend the same type of dollars advertising on black media platforms as they do elsewhere?
April 3rd, 1968, when Dr. King gave his speech at Mason Temple in Memphis, he said we must redistribute the pain. He said we must not do business with people who will not do business with us. He named specific companies that we should not buy products from. We have to make it clear to these companies that we're not going to be buying their products if they continue to ignore black people. I and others launched a black-owned media collective in 2021. A company like General Motors was doing 1% of spending with black folks. We have gotten them to agree to spend at least 8% by 2025 with black-owned media. McDonald's has increased. Target has increased. There are other companies we're targeting right now. Big Pharma spends less than 1% with black folks, but we know black folks in terms of these drugs. And so what black consumers have to make perfectly clear is that you're not going to continue to practice economic apartheid with black-owned media, but then you want us to buy your products. And so we have to have that level of discipline. And so people need to understand that our media matters because we're speaking for a constituency that, frankly, is not properly spoken to and for in mainstream media.
Lauren Williams and Roland Martin, thank you both. Roland, my brother, I appreciate you watching Black in America, or Black Men in America, The Road to 2024, and thank you